Or maybe even have a wander out on deck if you haven't experienced Tasmania's fine spring breezes. Today might be a time to try it, particularly when we get out a little bit further. Port side or left hand side of the boat. Okay, you might have worked out that this is a shipyard over here. This is where in 1830, for quite a number of years, the government were building boats. They built 150 or so small vessels and 15, 16 decked vessels. You can see a rusty version of one of those there. Now, this is an artist's interpretation of what one of those boats might have looked like. A boat of about 100 tonnes. Preferably they would have had a rather flatter deck than that one is representing. Vessel is a brick kiln that was built at a later time. It was used to burn limestone and shells, and that created lime mortar they used to hold the bricks together. It was also added to seaweed and the contents of the copious contents of the night cark collection down here to create a rather good fertiliser for the gardens. Cabbages grew very well down here. But, it's well worth a walk around there to have a look at the site. There's a lot of interpretation displays there. And soundscape going. There's a famous sack of whistling potatoes up behind Sunnybanks, which you might want to go and have a listen to. Trying to represent 50% of the boys out here, they're the pickpockets, the artful dodgers who plied the streets of London. They were sent out here simply to have them separated from the rest of the prisoners between the island and Point Poor. So I highly encourage you, if you are out there, to be separated. They've been hanging around in the hiring depots up in Hobart. Governor Arthur realised that really they're spending a lot more time there than they should. They're eating twice as much food, doing half as much work. They're learning bad habits of these old lags. So putting them down here, maybe giving them an education, reading, writing, arithmetic and religion, 4 hours, will give them a chance to, if they do well at that, they might get to learn a trade. Blacksmithing, bootmaking. Port of call from here, directly south, about 2,000 nautical miles away. Just hold on to those, you might see those cliffs over there. If you came here in the 1840s, you may well have seen boys scuttling around there like crabs, as they did try to escape from their drudgery of their work by hiding over the cliff. They could hide under those shelves, they could have food dropped down to them, they could even catch some of their own food off the rocks and get a few days away from work. Of course, they usually would get put in solitary confinement for such a crime when they got back, but that was probably preferable to some of the hard labour that they might have had to do. Really were that successful. One of the famous games that they got up to at night time would be to put the lights out, wait till an overseer's fallen asleep, and then upend the night bucket over his head, called crowning the overseer, which is, I would imagine, is a pretty good lesson that you wouldn't forget in a hurry. Port Arthur, the convicts knew this place as Dead Island, or Isle of the Dead as we call it today. You can see some gravestones up there on the island if you're looking carefully. And in fact, we do tours out to the Isle of the Dead. We've got a few people on board today that have already purchased a ticket. They're going out to the Isle of the Dead. If you are thinking about that, it's probably not too late to head down to the galley there and purchase one of those tickets. Your guide today will be Christine. For those people that are going ashore, you will need to show your tickets again with the Isle of the Dead printed on it. There are a couple of rules out there. We do ask that you refrain from touching any of the head. Civilians, people who could afford to have a headstone up there. Typically the military couldn't afford that, but they would pass the hat around among their comrades, and then their mates would have a suitable stone to mark his resting place. So those rules weren't relaxed until the 1850s. Poor, some of you may realise that poor is Latin for youth or boy, which is why it got its name. It's not pure, P-U-R-E, which is the people who are living here at Port Arthur. People are often asking, what would cause them to die in the first place. One of the major causes of death here at Port Arthur, across the board, for convicts, the military, for any of the civilian officers, was drowning. So if you go out there, the majority of those graves, or a majority, are for drowning deaths, from young to old. If you join us on some of our tours, you'll hear some more stories about those. Others were industrial actions. For the convicts, it was generally tree felling or working in the quarries, which led to your end, and then all the various illnesses that you might expect at that time. So the respiratory, dysentery were fairly common here for young children, things like scarlet fever, and also the diseases that are making a comeback in some places these days, things like mumps, measles. The iconic view you get of places you come in. You've got the Commandant's residence on the left and his private jetty just down beside the boat now as we cruise past that. The Commandant's residence up on the bank there is open to visit, and there are guided tours going on up there different times of the day. That's in your visitor map or booklet. We have the Junior Medical Officer's house directly ahead behind that green hedge you can see coming to view. You might want to join one of our escapes tours today, or even hang around tonight until you can join me on one of our ghost tours. This is where we head into the third most haunted house.